Hello everybody, my name is Asaad Mustafa FAQE MUHAMED. I am very pleased to be with you in the 14th Lumen conference in Romania. I believe the title is Rethinking Social Action, Core Values and Practice. My presentation is going to be about a psychoanalytic insight on the projective social mechanisms of moral panic. So before we delve into the topic, I think we should know what we mean by moral panics, or at least we have to know a little bit about its definition. So you all agree with me that one of the most convincing notions nowadays is the idea that we live increasingly in a society which is fraught with fear and anxieties. So with the presence of the news agencies or the news media, our sense of risk constantly becomes bigger and enlarges. So moral panics reflect social anxieties and concerns over certain actions that are seen as outside the social norms and values. These concerns are sensationalized and symbolized, of course, by the media in terms of being a real threat to the society. So, to the society and the social values. Most importantly, in the heart of this process, we see the news agencies, as always, in an opportunistic manner, take advantage of moral entrepreneurs or claim makers who lay, let's say, considerable emphasis on these concerns. They then reframe the issue in terms of solutions they favor, which eventually, elevate the threat to the stage of moral panic. This presentation aims to approach an experimental theoretical synthesis for studying moral panics. So its proposed approach connects both, Wilfred Boyne's psychoanalytic theory of the development of collective emotions with Foucault's discourse theory, especially his statement of the role of the moral code in growing subjectivity. With this being said, elites in moral panics comprise media managers, social and moral entrepreneurs, nominated experts, not normal experts, but experts who've been nominated, politicians, and sometimes state officials or functionaries. These people, choose issues to be selected for moral campaigning, which most of the time politically, motivated. But we have to remember that it's often psychologically grounded. Let me make it clear. For example, the protection of children has both an ideological base as well as a psychological dimension. An ideological base in the construction of innocent victims, and a psychological dimension in the emotion and the emotional reaction to exploitation of children in need of protection. Such collective emotional dynamics are often ignored or taken for granted in moral panic analysis. So related psychological dimension is campaign's roles in solidifying the elites as morally unified, otherwise divided by function or political views or political allegiance. Their identity and legitimacy as a group can be symbolically realized by moral panics. Such psychological factors require explanation just as much as the activities of claims makers or the machination of the mass media. Wilfred Boyne, who was an influential British psychoanalyst as well as a pioneer in group dynamics, believes that emotions play an important and key role in understanding group dynamic development in psychodynamic theory and practice. Boyne's work focuses on the way anxieties that are deep-rooted in group work may result in emotional attitudes that prevent the group from performing its task successfully. He thus introduces two main mentalities that may arise in groups working on a task. One mentality is instrumental in precisely working on the task and handling the inevitable clashes that happen with it. We can call this the so-called working group mode. The other mentality determines the group join in, an unconscious dynamic that lets the members have the impression they are really working on a task while they are actually conveying, their emotional awareness. To make it clearer, the subordination to a leader, their need to detach from a real or imaginary competitor. And, we can call this mode the basic hypothesis mode. What is most important here is that these two dynamics are unconscious. This is very important. Beyond's approach refers to the group as a whole rather than a single one. Though the individual group members may, reveal a dynamic that's expressing at the group level. Here the notion of valence is decisive. On the other hand, to Foucault, the discourse theory as a theory of engagement is important. We can call this ways of audience engagement. So Foucault's social ontology claims the effect of the unconscious in building one's moral panic discourse. While debates concerning the meaning and limitation of the notions of moral and panic have generated sharp contrasts and a degree of isolation among emerging perspectives, more recent engagements have shown how the open-ended character of the concept of moral panic may be taken in more creative directions in the future. This is something which has caused much difficulty and confusion in the past, but I believe that it is going towards a more creative directions in the future. When it comes to the critiques of moral panic theory is, I think, firmly connected to social media labeling, which means when something happens, it's the media that performs the labeling. Stanley Cohen's statement of moral panic theory claims that the audience is compliant. However, the audience, nowadays is able to critically evaluate the media content, which means that the, moral panic is not convenient. I mean, moral panic is less convenient. There are various reasons that panic may not occur, even if the media amplifies the deviance of some groups. This is because the media, also enhances the police's ability to deal with the with deviance and overstated reporting of deviance. It's very common nowadays that people are just desensitized to its effects. Moral panic relies on the concept of social order. To give you an example, a deep insight of this perspective might disclose evidences of collective consciousness, emotions changed into a pluralist inventory by an interactionist expertise of social identity that shifts operational, collectivity into a conservative ability for repressive, authority. Actually, Cohen himself emphasized when he first employed the term moral panic to portray the emotional reactions to youth cultural transgressions. Corresponding demands were being made about the disintegration of collective identities and the increase of, selfish individualism. This prompts that moral panic should be perceived as an extreme form of a more general process by which elites keep, a sort of legitimate authority through the established and intentional manipulation of audience concern. The account on media manipulation allows for a better understanding of the power exerted by the media in terms of influencing the perceptions of moral panic issues with society. The acknowledged representation of some phenomenon is just another effort to produce more moral panics, and probably not paying too much social scientific exploration of its generative mechanisms. These manifestations encompass everything from rioting youth, illicit drugs, child abuse or child protection, immigration, to issues like immigration. To conclude, the output of the moral panic can still be divided into three connected and overlapping stages. Firstly, the mass media and political elites follow a process of negative representation that employs emotional language, speculation and or fallacy to sensationalize selected phenomena that usually show minor crime or deviance. Then they dispose these evil symbols to warn the society or the audience that some subcultural lifestyle generates a constant threat to the prevailing social values and norms that hold society together and prevent from collapsing. This arouses a fearful collective state of mind in which the further spread of social control can be more easily legitimated. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to participate in this great conference.